there, fantasy owners. Welcome to LTC Fantasy here. Not sure if you're chiming in watching via YouTube or listening via podcast, but really do appreciate the listen no matter how you're streaming the episode there. Like to thank our current and new subscribers. Really do appreciate the support. If you're not subscribed, please remember to do so, as we do put out 3 episodes every week looking at different players to hopefully strengthen your fantasy roster. As well, on YouTube, we do put out shorts daily looking at a few players for the next day's games, just in case you're in a pinch, to hopefully find you a little bit of a value add to help get you that little bit of an edge in your fantasy leagues there. Today's our weekend ads episode, so we will look at this weekend schedule, break it down, and hopefully find some players to help you make that final push at the end of your fantasy week. Some things to note is Friday there's only 4 games, Saturday 13 games, and Sunday 6 games. So Friday and Sunday as normal are a little bit lighter there. Every team that does play either Friday or Sunday does get in 2 games this weekend. So nobody that just plays either Friday or Sunday there. So we will look at teams that play both Friday and Sunday first, as those are your light nights. Then we'll look at players that play Friday and Saturday, and then finish it off with players that play Saturday and Sunday. So basically we'll get right into it. Some demon that play both Friday and Sunday. First one's Jared Spurgeon from Minnesota there, owned in 65% of Yahoo leagues. Playing on the top pairing second power play unit, he has 4 points in his last 7 games there, is a +5, 9 hits, and 15 blocks. He's decent in most cats this year. He's okay offensively, is low by his track record, but still decent offensively, so should be a decent streamer for you getting in both light nights. Next one from Minnesota is Kalen Addison, only owned in 22% of Yahoo leagues. Plays on that second pairing and top power play unit. He's been pointless the last 4 games, but he did put up 7 points in the previous 7 games there. The rookie's pretty hot or cold, so with both light nights, with his offensive talent, might be worth streaming for you. A little bit of risk-reward kind of a stream, but definitely an option out there. Next one's Vince Dunn from Seattle, owned in 36% of Yahoo leagues, playing top pairing, top power play unit, and he has 6 points in his last 7 games there, with 10 shots on goal, 6 hits, and 10 blocks. He is starting to get his offense going. He should be a pretty safe streaming option because he does contribute in other categories there, so definitely having both light nights is a decent option. Next one's Jamie Oleksiak from Seattle, owned in 7% of Yahoo leagues, playing on that second pairing, and he has 5 points his last 8 games with 19 hits and 19 blocks. Really, his true value is in the hits and blocks department, but the fact that he's chipping in a little bit offensively, if he can keep it going on these light nights this weekend, definitely provides some value. Next one's Dmitry Orlov over in Washington. He's owned in 48% of Yahoo leagues, playing top pairing second power play unit. He is listed as day-to-day, as he did miss his last game on Monday there. I'm recording this on Tuesday, so if he does get back in the lineup, and with Carlson out, it's going to tack on a few more minutes, and he's a pretty steady contributor in most categories there. Little light on the offense, but he gets you the shots on goal, plus minus is decent, hits and blocks, etc. Next one from Washington is Nick Jensen, owned in 23% of Yahoo leagues, playing on that second pairing. He's been pointless the last 4, but he does have 7 points in 12 games overall, so over a half point per game, which is way over his career average there, but he does have 18 hits and 23 blocks. Again, similar to Oleksiak, his value is going to be in hits and blocks if those are counted in your league. Might be a streaming option there for you. If he does chip in offensively, it's going to be a nice little added bonus for you. So now we'll move along to some forwards that play both Friday and Sunday. And we'll start off in Dallas. Look at Jamie Benn, listed as center left winger, owned in 26% of Yahoo leagues. Playing on the third line, but top power play unit. He's been really hot, having 8 points his last 3 games there, with 16 shots on goal. He's back on the top power play unit. He kind of dipped into the fountain of youth a bit there, really producing of late. So it might be a hot streak to ride going into the weekend as they get both light nights. Next one from Dallas is Denis Gurianov, listed as left winger, right winger. Pretty much available everywhere. Only owned in 1% of Yahoo leagues. Plays on the second line and second power play unit. He's currently on a 3-game point streak where he has 3 points in those 3 games there. 7 shots on goal. History shows last year before that, he is really streaky. So he would be a streaming option at best. But if it's in a deep league, he's on a little bit of a streak right now. Might provide a little bit of value for you depending how your league is formatted there. Going over to Minnesota, look at Joel Eriksson Ek, listed as a center, owned in 55% of Yahoo leagues. Centers at second line and top power play unit. He has 6 points his last 6 games there. Is a +5, 20 shots on goal and 8 hits. He's been fairly consistent throughout the year. Contributes fairly consistently, as I should say, and in quite a few categories there. So it'd be a pretty safe streaming option for you. Next one is Kevin LeBlanc in San Jose there, listed as left winger, right winger. Available everywhere, 0% owned. Is on that top line and second power play unit, and he put in got 2 points his last game there. +2, 1 power play point, 6 shots on goal. That was his first game on that top line, chipped in a couple of points there. He's played well with Hurdle and Meyer. If he stays up there for the weekend, definitely a chance to get some piggyback points there and be kind of a sneaky streaming option for you. Next one's Logan Couture from San Jose, listed as a center, owned in 28% of Yahoo leagues. Centering that second line and top power play unit. And he's put up 4 points in his last 5 games there. 2 of those points being on the power play. 16 shots on goal, 8 hits, and 3 blocks. His offense has been inconsistent this year. You're used to a little bit more consistency with him. But he's good in other categories. So even if he drops you a bagel on a light night, he should still contribute in other categories. Depending how your league is formatted, might be a decent streaming option. Next one's Alex Barabanov from San Jose, listed as left winger, right winger, only owned in 1% of Yahoo leagues, on that second line and top power play unit. He's put up 6 points his last 7 games there. 3 of those 6 points being on the power play, 5 hits and 7 blocks. He's on a decent little run right now, so if you don't mind kind of gutting it out because he can be inconsistent, but ride the hot wave, might be an okay streaming option for you. Depending how deep your league is there might be better options. Next one's Andre Burakovsky from Seattle, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 43% of Yahoo leagues, on that top line and top power play unit, and he's put up 5 points his last 7 games there, 18 shots on goal. He's been fairly consistent throughout the years. For an offensive-based league, pretty safe streaming option for you. Next one's Alex Wenberg in Seattle. Quite a few Seattle players here. Listed as a center, owned in 1% of Yahoo leagues. Playing on that top line right now, second power play unit. He's put up 4 points his last 4 games there. 7 shots on goal, 4 hits, and 3 blocks. So as I mentioned, for the moment, he is on that top line, producing fairly decent the last week and a bit here there. So in a deep league, might be a decent streaming option for you. Next one from Seattle's Oliver Bjorkstrand, listed as a right winger, owned in 20% of Yahoo leagues. Currently on the top line, second power play unit. He 3 points in his last 3 games there. He was pointless the previous 5, so is really inconsistent, but we know from the past he was a fairly good contributor in Columbus there. The inconsistency kind of scares me a bit, but if he's on a little bit of a run, depending how deep your league is, might be an option for you streaming with having both light nights. Next one's Matty Beniers in Seattle, listed as a center, owned in 40% of Yahoo leagues. On that second line, top power play unit, he's been pointless the last 2 games, but he did have a 5-game point streak before that. He is a little bit streaky, but there's no denying that he does have offensive talent there. So with both off nights, he might be a decent streaming option. Next one from Seattle is Morgan Geekie, listed as a center, owned in 1% of Yahoo leagues, playing on the fourth line, but he has 7 points his last 7 games, so he's really hot right now. He does it with very limited ice time. He doesn't get a lot of ice time, so that does scare me because less time to keep that streak kind of going. But if you're in a really deep league, might be a sneaky streaming option for you. Next one is Jaden Schwartz in Seattle, listed as a left winger, owned in 26% of Yahoo leagues, playing on that second line top power play unit, and he's pointless the last 3, but he did have 7 points over the previous 5 games there. So he is a little bit streaky, but we do know that he can produce. It's just with the little bit of streakiness there, it does make it a little bit more risky. But in a deeper league and getting both off nights, depending who's available, might be an option to stream this weekend. Next one's Nicholas Paul over in Tampa there, listed as center left winger, owned in 9% of Yahoo leagues, playing on that second line. He's currently on a 5-game point streak where he's put up 6 points. He's a +3, 11 shots on goal, 15 hits, and 5 blocks. He's been really hot of late, contributing in most categories. He's currently playing with Stamkos, seems to be finding some chemistry there, so might be an option for you, especially with getting both light nights. Next one from Tampa is Brandon Hagel, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 12% of Yahoo leagues, playing on the top line and second power play unit. He has 10 points in his last 7 games there, +9. And 15 shots on goal. He really is finding some chemistry with Point and Kucherov and riding that. Cooper seems to like keeping them together for the last little while there. If that keeps going, he's definitely going to get some points playing with those guys. Next one's Alex Killorn over in Tampa, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 21% of Yahoo leagues, playing on the second line, second power play unit, and he has 4 points in his last 4 games there with 3 hits. He's been inconsistent this year, but he is a better player than what he shows overall this year. He's on a little bit of a run right now, so maybe he's snapping out of it. And with that, depending how deep your league is, might be worth a stream this weekend. And the last one's over in Washington is Dylan Strome, listed as center right winger, owned in 25% of Yahoo leagues, playing on that second line top power play unit, and he's put up 11 points in 12 games this year. Overall production looks pretty good, basically a point per game, but he is hit or miss because 9 of his 11 points are in just 4 games, so there's a lot of bagels in there. He's a real risk-reward kind of a streamer, but with having both light nights, might be worth taking a chance on there. For Friday, Saturday, D-men, there really isn't anybody that I feel comfortable suggesting. It's just all the higher ownerships that are one, so I'd look at some of the Friday ones that we mentioned in the Friday, Sunday, or some that play Saturday, Sunday that we'll mention a little later on in the episode. So basically, we'll just kind of skip over that part. For forwards that play Friday and Saturday, though, look at Jason Zucker over in Pittsburgh, listed as a left winger, owned in 12% of Yahoo leagues, plays on the second line, second power play unit, and he's put up 8 points in 10 games there, with 23 shots on goal and 27 hits. He's been fairly consistent this year, seems to be working out well with Malkin, been with him most of the year so far, so might be a decent streaming option depending how deep your league is and how full your roster is on Saturday, but Sunday for sure. Next one's Rickard Rakell, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 57% of Yahoo leagues, playing on that second line, second power play unit. He just has 6 points in 12 games so far, but does have 44 shots on goal, 20 hits, and 8 blocks. His secondary cats are really, really good. You'd just like to see a little bit more offense, but if you're only streaming them for 1 or 2 days this weekend, might be able to swallow the lack of offense, or he might chip in and you might be able to make it worthwhile. Some defensemen that play Saturday and Sunday there. Look at Matt Grzelcyk, owned in 13% of Yahoo leagues, playing on the second pairing, second power play unit. He's pointless the last 4 games, but had 4 points the previous 5 games, so he is kind of hit or miss, kind of a stream. So in a deeper league, might be worth streaming. I'd need to see a little more consistency for a standard league. Next one's Luke Shen over in Vancouver, owned in 25% of Yahoo leagues, playing on that top pairing, and he's put up 4 points in his last 5 games there, plus 4, 25 hits and 6 blocks. His value really is in those secondary categories there, but if he is chipping in a little bit offensively, might be worth streaming. Next one's Oliver Ekman-Larsson from Vancouver, owned in 17% of Yahoo leagues, plays on the second pairing, second power play unit. Did see he did get an assist tonight there. I'm recording this on Tuesday. He does have 5 points his last 10 games played, so now 6 and 11. 22 shots on goal, 15 hits, and 8 blocks. He chips in a little bit in each category over the length of time, so if you're in a close matchup, need a little push, and you have a spot open, might be worth streaming. Next one is Josh Morrissey from Winnipeg, owned in 64% of Yahoo leagues, playing top pairing, top power play unit, and he has 11 points in 11 games played so far this year, 17 shots on goal, 14 hits, 15 blocks. He's been really good this season, contributing in most categories. Probably not going to be able to mention him soon as he's creeping up to that 65% threshold, but definitely worth streaming if he is available in your league there. Now we'll move along to some forwards that play Saturday and Sunday there. First one is Travis Boyd from Arizona, listed as center right winger, only owned in 1% of Yahoo league. Centering that top line, top power play unit. He does only have 1 point his last 5 games, but he had 5 points the previous 5, so obviously he is streaky there, but playing with Keller, chance of getting some piggyback points there. Really dependent on who his line mates are there, but depending how deep your league is, if it's a really deep league, might be worth streaming. Another one from Arizona is Nick Ritchie, listed as a left winger, owned in 3% of Yahoo leagues, currently on the third line on the top power play unit. He has 3 goals his last 3 games there, with 8 hits and 2 blocks. He's been a really hot and cold kind of a player, but he does give you a decent amount of hits. Not bad, okay blocks, so there's a little bit of value there. If you don't mind gutting it out in a real deep league, might be worth streaming. Next one is Lawson Krause from Arizona, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 8% of Yahoo leagues. Plays on the second line, second power play unit. He has 7 points his last 9 games, so pretty good production. 20 shots on goal, 25 hits. Throws the body a ton. Really decent production. Obviously, nice amount of shots on goal and hits, so adds a little bit of extra value depending how your league is formatted there. Might be a streaming option for you this weekend. And the next one's Matthias Maselli, listed as a left winger, 0% owned there in the desert. Playing on the second line, second power play unit. He has 6 points his last 7 games. I think he got 2 points tonight on Tuesday there. 4 of those being on the power play. Not really high in shots on goal, hits and blocks overall, but in a pure offensive league, and if it's a deep league, might be an option streaming this weekend. Over in Boston, look at Jake DeBrusk, listed as left winger, right winger, owned in 54% of Yahoo leagues, playing on the top line, second power play unit. He has 5 points his last 6 games there, 21 shots on goal, 3 of those 5 points being on the power play, 12 hits and 4 blocks. He's been fairly good of late and kind of chipping in a little bit here and there with every category there, so might be worth streaming there. Next one from Boston's Taylor Hall, listed as a left winger, owned in 62% of Yahoo leagues. Been on the second line, second power play unit. He has 8 points his last 9 games there with 22 shots on goal. He has been really streaky this year. You're either really going to love him or really going to hate him. If you dress him, he's more of a risk-reward play, but might be worth streaming. Over in Philly, look at Kevin Hayes, listed as a center, owned in 23% of Yahoo leagues, playing the top line, top power play unit, and he has 11 points in 11 games played there. He just snapped a little 3-game slump where he had no points in 3 games there, then he got a goal. So otherwise, he's been fairly productive, so he might be worth streaming. Another one in Philly is Travis Konechny, listed as a right winger, owned in 59% of Yahoo leagues. Man, that shot up over the last little bit here. On the top line, top power play unit, he has 12 points in 11 games played there. 6 of his 12 points on the power play, 34 shots on goal, 12 hits, 11 blocks. He really does check most boxes when it does come to his stats in different categories there. So if he is available, should be a fairly good streamer for you. Over in Vancouver, look at Andrei Kuzmenko, listed as a left winger, owned in 30% of Yahoo leagues, playing on the second line, top power play unit. He's been really hot of late. He has 6 goals and 3 assists for 9 points in his last 5 games there, plus 5. 4 of those 9 points being on the power play and 14 shots on goal. He really has been about as hot as it gets there, really finding chemistry with Pettersson. So if he is available, pretty safe bet to stream him this weekend. Another one in Vancouver is Ilya Mikheyev, listed as left winger, right winger, only owned in 5% of Yahoo leagues, playing on that second line, second power play unit, and he has 6 points in his last 5 games there, is a plus 6, 13 shots on goal, and 3 blocks. He is kind of that added piece on that second line with Kuzmenko and Pettersson, so if those guys are taken, and if it is a deep league, might be a decent streaming option for you. Finish it off in Winnipeg, look at Cole Perfetti, listed as center, left wing, and right wing. Really like that you can slot him in any forward spot. Owned in 17% of Yahoo leagues. Playing on that second line, second power play unit. He has 3 points his last 6 games played, so only half point per game, but has had 5 points the previous 4. He really is streaky this season, kind of up and down with his point production. But you can't deny that the kid does have some pretty good offensive talent. So if you have room on your roster, might be worth streaming there. Last one is Blake Wheeler in Winnipeg. Listed as a right winger, owned in 50% of Yahoo leagues. Plays on the second line, second power play unit. And he has 9 points in 12 games this season with 10 hits. The veteran's still producing, so he should be... He's producing okay, not great, but not going to hurt you in other categories. He'd be a fairly safe streaming option for you. That wraps it up for this episode. We'll be out in a bit with our Week 6 strategy episode. If you did like it and you're watching via YouTube, remember to hit like, hit subscribe, remember that notification bell. If you're listening via podcast, remember to hit like, follow, that heart, subscribe, depending what platform you're listening to it on. And we'll talk to you soon there, fantasy owners, and good luck in your matches.